Welcome to An American Catechism by Stab the Dragon Productions for another whiskey holiday and movie review number 6. Today is Thursday, September 18th, 2025, and it is currently 93 degrees here in Fort Worth, Texas. American Catechism is here to help explore, catechize, and discuss American history, Western civilization, our culture, politics, the Christian faith, and enjoy some whiskeys along the way. Part of this task is reviewing movies and books that impress me as being important, meaningful, or are classics. Today, we're doing 3 things. We are celebrating the birthday of the United States Air Force, September 18th, 1947. We are reviewing a movie about the Air Force that perhaps some veterans and active duty airmen or civilians interested in the Air Force might enjoy and consider watching. And then third, we are briefly just presenting this whiskey, somewhat related to the Air Force by the name Starlight. Okay, it may be a stretch, but so we're going to discuss the Air Force first, and then a little bit about the whiskey, and then we'll focus the remainder of time on this movie, A Gathering of Eagles, starring Rock Hudson. Okay, later time I may do a full review of this whiskey. First of all, to the United States Air Force, and I'll be sipping on an old-fashioned that's got this Starlight Distillery Old Rickhouse rye. Okay, and that is an on-fire old-fashioned. Very good. So cheers to the United States Air Force. Now, the Air Force's roots go back as far as 1907 and the United States Army Aeronautical Division of the Signal Corps. And then in World War I, it became the United States Army Air Service. And then in between the wars in 1926, the U.S. Army Air Corps. The Air Force, as a separate branch of the military, did not happen until the National Security Act went into effect September 18th, 1947. The mission of the U.S. Air Force is to fly, fight, and win anytime, anywhere. And the joke that goes along with that is, if it absolutely, positively has to be destroyed overnight, call the Air Force. There you go. That's inside the Armed Forces joke. So, the Air Force is in charge of also the land-based ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles, the strategic bombers like B-52s that we will see in this movie, tactical fighters, close air support aircraft, reconnaissance aircraft, military transport. I've flown in quite a few military transports in my day, and a variety of other things that the Air Force does. And so that, they are a huge, a lot of variety in the Air Force. And we have the world's largest Air Force with about 5,700 manned aircraft and 328,000 active duty airmen or thereabouts, another 106,000 Air National Guardsmen, and their motto is aim high, fly, fight, win. There you go. Now, this whiskey that we're sipping on at the moment, Starlight Old Rickhouse, Indiana Straight Rye Whiskey, small batch. This comes from Borden, Indiana, small town. Actually, if you look at the pictures of the distillery, it's in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. It is rural, not a big city suburb, although I think it's about 20 minutes away from a small city. This 7th generation Huber family owned distillery and farm, orchard and winery dates back to 1843. But now this version of their distillery, the Starlight Distillery, actually started in 2001. And this is a small craft distillery that seems to have made a big splash in the whiskey world due to their high quality product. And I am a craft distillery fanboy. I'll tell you that, especially here in Texas. This is their Old Rickhouse Indiana Straight Rye, coming in at 46% ABV or a 92 proof, aged for 4 years. This is a sweet mash fermentation distilled in copper pot stills. Now, I have seen a couple of references that state the mash bill for this rye is 85% rye and 15% malted barley, so no corn. I paid $36.83 at my local Specs Liquor here in Fort Worth, which for a craft rye, especially of this quality, is a fantastic price and great value. The taste, yeah, you get the rye spice, some cinnamon, apple, sweet. This is a delicious rye. And it's kind of a middle of the road standard high rye. So Kentucky ryes tend to be 51% rye and the rest is corn and a little bit of barley. And so those are very hard to distinguish from bourbons actually. But this is a high rye, and so it's got a lot of the rye flavor. I would definitely recommend it. Now, coming from Texas, where a lot of our ryes have the Texas funk, this is not that. Okay, this is more of a classic rye. It approaches a Monongahela rye from Pennsylvania that are 100% rye. But that 15% barley that's in here gives it a little slightly different flavor going on that is really quite remarkable. So, definitely I recommend. On to the movie. A Gathering of Eagles, 1963, directed by Delbert Mann, story by and produced by Cy Bartlett, who also produced and wrote the great movie 12 O'Clock High. And so that was a World War II flying movie and kind of achieved classic status, starring Gregory Peck. Screenplay by Robert Perosh, music by Jerry Goldsmith and Tom Lehrer, starring Rock Hudson as Colonel James Caldwell, Rod Taylor as Colonel Hollis Farr, Mary Peach as Victoria Caldwell. 116 minutes long. They had a budget of $3.3 million and a box office take of only $2.5 million. Nominated for Academy Award for Best Sound Effects. The movie had the full cooperation of the United States Air Force and General Curtis LeMay. Veterans of my age would know that name. The director, Delbert Mann, had actually been a B-24 bomber pilot in World War II, so hero status there. The plot. I think the purpose of this movie is to tell the story of the Strategic Air Command in the early 1960s as they practice a rigorous discipline to keep America safe during the Cold War. So it portrays the toll on the airmen and their families as they prepare for war through maintaining a realistic training and maintenance regimen. The story begins with a SAC wing, Strategic Air Command wing, that fails an IG, Inspector General, surprise inspection and a subsequent change of command, placing Colonel Caldwell, Rock Hudson, in charge of the wing and follows him through the following weeks as he leads this bomber wing to upgrade their readiness. His mission first leadership is strongly tested, and the basic question is the job everything? Don't people matter? I gave this movie a score of 86 and a letter grade for importance and enjoyability, an A-. Recommendation. Who should watch this and why? Well, I really think that this is a movie that's got a niche audience. It didn't do well in the box office sales originally, and so I would say this is directed more at people, probably people my age who were in the military back then during the Cold War. I think this would resonate with them. I think active duty Air Force today should watch this movie. I think it's got a lot to say. And I think active duty military's families should watch this. Again, it's got a lot to say about the family life in the military. So that's I think who should watch it and why. I mean, it really gives a, if you're a student of the Cold War, I think it would be beneficial as well. All right, historical accuracy. This movie was made with the full cooperation of the Air Force and General LeMay. The production crew gained unprecedented access to a real SAC base, or actually a couple of SAC bases, at Beale Air Force Base, California, and Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. Ironically, when the crew was filming at Offutt in Nebraska, the Cuban Missile Crisis was beginning, and the film crew noticed a change in the demeanor of the base personnel. Oh yeah. Now, while I did not serve in the United States Air Force, I did serve in the Army and underwent numerous command inspections, IG inspections, EDRES, Emergency Deployment Readiness Exercises, QRF, Quick Reaction Force, RTEP testings at platoon, company, and battalion. So in other words, every military service, whether it's Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Space Force, everybody, they all go through these types of inspections and testings and readiness exercises. That's what the military does in peacetime. And it's a very rigorous program. It's very stressful. And you do see people relieved because of that. Not relieved as in, glad that's over, but as in, you're fired, right? That happens. So this movie did bring back many memories of the stress of training and inspections and maintenance as we maintained our readiness and prepared for war in the Cold War. As a teenager, I did serve in the Civil Air Patrol. Trying to point to something. There we go. And Air Force Junior ROTC. So I did get some exposure to the Air Force, toured a few Air Force bases, and then in the Army flew on a lot of Air Force airplanes. So, I've got a small bit of experience with the Air Force there, and I can truthfully say that Air Force chow halls are the best. Okay. So all this to say, I found the movie to be very historically accurate for the times, very realistic. They got the stress levels accurate for sure. And they even got some of the Air Force attitudes and lingo right. The Air Force does have a little bit more of a relaxed, friendly atmosphere and climate than does the Army. Everybody who's been around both knows that. The sense of mission during the Cold War, that was accurate. Again, I served during the Cold War, and many today simply do not understand that. So for historical accuracy, 20 out of 20. And of course, the airplanes were real that you see in the movie. The airplanes are definitely real. I live in Fort Worth on the west side, close to the old Carswell Air Force Base. And so a lot of the scenes in this movie absolutely resonated with what I used to see every day, right? Because I am right by the airbase. Production background, working very closely again with the Air Force, using their equipment, their airplanes on SAC bases, was extraordinary and effective, giving this movie its authenticity. Absolutely. So the background with the cooperation of the Air Force was superb. The $3.3 million budget seems pretty high for that time period, but when you look at the authenticity and possible fuel costs, I don't know if the movie production crew had to fund some of the fuel costs that the Air Force used or not. But airplane time is incredibly expensive. So I would say they went all out on this movie. So 5 out of 5 for production background. Set, scenery, and wardrobe. The sets and scenery did look authentic. The missile silos, that was pretty wild. The aircraft and runways I've been on a lot. Drive by every single day. I see all kinds of big jets and little jets flying every day where I live. The hangars, those look pretty accurate. The uniforms look good. So 9 out of 10 for set, scenery, and wardrobe. Music. The music was great for heightening the feelings during the many tense situations and softening the mood during the many domestic scenes. One song in the movie was written for the Strategic Air Command by Tom Lehrer, and that song had great lyrics. I'll read these. So this is the song for the Strategic Air Command. Here at SAC we're filled with pride. There's just one thing we can't decide. Which we'd rather get clobbered by, an enemy attack or an ORI. Our wing commander's got a racket, though sometimes it's hard to hack it. Whenever he gets his wife alone, ding-a-ling-a-ling goes the little red phone. You'll see the red phone right there. We love the 7-day alert. For a week we will not see a skirt. We know it's part of SAC's main goal to test our positive control. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Whatever became of the wild blue yonder. How we wish the good old days were back in SAC. And Rod Taylor's the one who plays the piano and sings that song in the movie. So that was very, very well done by Tom Lehrer. And Tom Lehrer did a whole bunch of patriotic songs in his music writing days. So for music, I give this a 12 out of 15. You come away that there's not many memorable tunes in here, but the music does really help control and amplify the moods. So 12 points there. Story and plot. After a SAC wing is hit with a surprise operational readiness inspection and fails, that's ORI. The wing commander is relieved of duty and Colonel Caldwell comes in to straighten the place up and get it ready. And he gets ruthless in his attempts to straighten up the mess, including firing old friends along the way. The main theme is, this is what the Strategic Air Command does and what the airmen have to do to be able to protect America. But the other main theme is, this is what the stress of the job does to families. That's emphasized throughout the movie. It's not just incidental. I mean, that's one of the two main themes here. The writer originally had written an adulterous affair as part of the plot, but the censors cut that out. So they only hinted at it in the movie and turned it into an innocuous misunderstanding. And if you look at the cover of the DVD here, it's got a heavy emphasis on romantic stuff going on there. She's kissing Colonel Caldwell. And I would say that part was really kind of a minor aspect of the movie. But the phone, the red phone that's there, that's a major part. And then I think they should have made the airplanes, as the focus of the movie. But, there is a B-52 down there. You can just barely see it. So I think the story and plot, though, it stresses some training accidents as well, or dangerous situations in training, so that even in peacetime, the Air Force is a dangerous place. And that's true of the military all over. I mean, we do dangerous stuff. And, there's always going to be casualties in training. It just happens. So it's very realistic. Training fatalities, they're not real common, do happen. I know when I was in the Army, there were several fatalities. The movie culminates in another ORI, and so you got to ask, all right, did they pass under Colonel Caldwell or did they not? That you're kind of, that's kind of a high point there in the movie. The drama builds up. So for plot, 17 of 20. Acting. Now, I'm not a Rock Hudson fan at all, and this is the only Rock Hudson movie I remember seeing, but I thought he did this part fairly well. Now, both Rod Taylor as Colonel Farr and they played their role very well. I think that the female role was good by Miss Peach. Mary Peach. She played Mrs. Caldwell, and I think that was a pretty good role. The only problem I really saw with the acting is that many of the actors I thought were too old for their roles. There needed to be more 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, men in their 20s to accurately reflect the military. So 12 out of 15 for acting. Special effects, I'll count all the military aircraft and vehicles that I saw in the movie as special effects, and that worked very well. The sound of the alarms and the red phones, I think, was pretty realistic. So 7 out of 10 for special effects. Bonus points. I really did like this movie. It's likely because I've kind of been there, done that in the Army and in Civil Air Patrol. In ROTC. I really like the overall message of the movie. So 4 out of 5 bonus points, giving me a total score of 86 and a letter grade for importance and enjoyability, an A minus, which my rating scheme for this movie is much higher. If you go to like Rotten Tomatoes or somewhere, this is not scored very well at all. I think a 6.5 or something. So I'm rating it significantly higher than they did, but because it's dated, okay, and so am I. And so, I can identify with the stuff I see in here. Analysis and recommendation. This movie, again, was not very well received at the time. Though if you do a search for movies about the Air Force, this is pretty well highly rated. So but it's not really going to be on anybody's favorite list. Why? Because it's a peacetime military movie. That's all about readiness, maintenance, and training, not a wartime drama filled with action and drama. In essence, this movie, written by the same man who wrote 12 O'Clock High, and is in fact very similar in its themes, is pretty much a Cold War movie that seeks to tell the American public, you're in good hands. We are keeping you safe. And the public's response was a yawn, which is sad. It's truly unfortunate. Today, those who would be interested in this movie, I think, are military veterans or families of those who served back then in the Cold War, particularly in the Air Force, or who are currently serving in the Air Force or are studying the Cold War as history. Military wives could also be encouraged, I think, by watching this movie. And again, I rated it fairly high because of my background. So, am I glad I purchased this movie and watched it? 100%, absolutely. And in fact, I had another buddy over who served in the Army at the same time I did, and then my wife watched it with us, and she was with me when I was in the Army. So, we all enjoyed the movie. Conclusion. Next week, I'll return to my Stab the Dragon channel to continue studying some bourbons from the James B. Beam Company for National Bourbon Heritage Month. Looking at another Basil Hayden offering called Subtle Smoke. There you go. That's coming up next week. And then in October, we've got a History Rich Month, which includes such things as the birthday of the United States Navy. So that means maybe reviewing a movie about the Navy and drinking a Navy-related whiskey. But there's also some Texas history. You've got the anniversary of the Battle of Mogadishu. You've got Columbus Day, Leif Erikson Day, and the Battle of Tours anniversary dating all the way back to 732 AD and the great Charles Martel. And of course, we have All Saints Eve and Reformation Day, Halloween. So October's fully packed. So, and then after that, somewhere during October, I hope to return to my Texas Rye Whiskey Studies and blended Scotch reviews. So, a closing salute to you Air Force vets and active duty. Aim high. In hope, Signo Winkies. Out here.